I will make further announcements via email about next month's colloquium. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Peter Griffith, and he'll tell you more about the new colloquium series.
Thanks, Holly. I'm not actually the speaker today, and I am doing a little improv. Unfortunately, I had improv training last year because the speakers are going through security at the moment. Thank you all for showing up. I thought I'd say a little bit about NASA's carbon monitoring system. For those who don't know about it, it was started up through direct instruction to the agency by Congress in 2010. And it has appeared in the 2012 and 2013 budgets as well. We're anticipating that there will be a requirement written into NASA's budget in 2014, but I have not yet seen that. You can find out more about the CMS at carbon.nasa.gov, which I've put up here as we fill the time for the actual speakers to show up. And at the beginning, the CMS revolved around a group of projects that developed a flux pilot project that was both a global model and some specific land and ocean models. And I see some of the people who did those in the room here, so I won't try to tell you exactly what they did. And also land biomass and ocean biomass products. And then in 2012, there was an additional solicitation. A group of investigations were selected in that with just 18 months of funding. And so that 2012 cycle actually finishes up in March. And in 2013, there was another solicitation, and those projects that were selected were much more decision support, and a lot of them were RED, the tropical forest reduced emissions from degradation, deforestation oriented. And fortunately, the agency was able to solicit and make awards for 3 years, which is a much more reasonable funding cycle than that 18-month one. And any of you who are suffering through the 18-month cycle, you have my sympathy, but it was not anything that could have been avoided. So among the activities that were selected in 2013 was an activity, a project that's led by Molly Brown and Vanessa Escobar, to work on an applications framework for the carbon monitoring system. And they're the folks that have initiated this seminar series. I'm really looking forward to finding out what happens in that.
How many of you have heard of Dan Sarewitz? I'm sure you all have heard of him, which is why you're here. He is somebody who has done a lot of thinking and discussing of uncertainty and using science and society, and that's really what we've been focusing on our carbon monitoring system project, is to how to take the models and the research which have been funded through NASA's our proposal process, and to push it out to people who are actually going to use the data directly in decision making. So, for example, one of the projects that was funded this year is the Carbon Tracker, NASA Carbon Tracker, and they are people who take observations of power plant emissions, for example, and put them into a gridded model, and then show maps of what the carbon dioxide emissions are for the United States and globally, right? And so that information is then used to decide whether or not what kind of things that we're doing, if we are doing a better job or worse job on figuring out carbon monitoring and carbon emissions. Yes?
Is that a NOAA project?
Yes, it's a NOAA project, but they've gotten NASA funding and are part of the carbon monitoring system. So the topic that we're going to be focused on here today is uncertainty. And what we're trying to do is try to understand if you are doing science, you have an observation and a model, and there's uncertainties both in the observations and the models. When you're communicating the uncertainties in your science, you need to be focused when that information will be used in decision making on the kinds of uncertainties that the decision maker themselves are interested in. For example, so for the decision making, so take my previous example, if you're having CO2 observations, they might not really care about the spatial uncertainty. They might not care about the model uncertainty. What they really want to know is how certain is the observation at the stack if they're making decisions about power plants, right? Yeah, so understanding the kind of uncertainty that users need to know will require you really having an intimate knowledge of what kind of decisions are being made. Who are those people using the information, and what types of information do they need? And that's why the topic of uncertainty is extremely complex, because you have all sorts of scientific ways of defining uncertainty, but those may not be very helpful when you're using those products in a decision-making environment. So I'm probably confused everyone totally. But when you're bringing multiple models together, for example, you could add up all the uncertainty and have 1,000% uncertainty, because you have uncertainties in every step of the modeling process and in the observations and all these other things, and so it's phenomenally uncertain, even though in reality having a model of changes in CO2 emissions is actually far better than what we do now, which is we have no information at all in many places, and we're just guessing. So if you see what I'm saying, so if you're a decision maker and you need to know what the carbon dioxide emission is in a particular place that doesn't have an observation, having a model which is fairly uncertain is much better than nothing. And so uncertainty is a very difficult question, particularly when you are focused on the sort of science to operation.
The effort of this policy series is to connect CMS science to societal outcomes, to really connect the decision maker organizations and the policy organizations and bring it all into Goddard, because we do a good job of engaging going outward, but we would like to also bring it into the science development community. So if you would like to join applications, we do have a sign up in the back, and our speakers will be here after the talk for questions. So, Dan.